everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I have my July wrap up, so let's just get right into it. So this was another month where I didn't think I was going to need a mid-month wrap up because at the mid-month point I'd only read about 6 books, but since then I kind of read like a lot of books. So I ended up with 19 books in this video, so I'm sorry that this is going to be long, and I will definitely do a mid-month wrap-up next month, and hopefully going forward I'll be able to keep up with that. But this one's going to be a bit of a long one. So the first book I read this month was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is obviously her newest release. I didn't love this one. I know that's like a super unpopular opinion. I've seen everyone pretty much give this 5 stars. And I don't know if it was just like me and the way I was reading it that made me not love it, because I actually read this while I was at like a family vacation like cottage, and because of that I was kind of reading it like in little bits and pieces like here and there, or like reading it while people were talking and I was like listening to their conversations or like whatever. Like I know there was one point where like I read like 8 pages in an hour because I just like wasn't really focused on the book. And I think that may have played a role in it, but I just like didn't vibe with this one. I felt like, I don't know, the romance in this one was really not the center of attention in this book, and I just didn't love that. I don't know if, I started wondering if maybe like beach read was like that too, and maybe that's why I didn't really vibe with beach read. I loved People We Meet on Vacation, so I had high hopes for this one, but I just felt like this book really focused more on the main character's relationship with her sister than her relationship with the guy she was supposed to be getting with in this book. I didn't really care for the ending. I know it was like probably what everyone wanted, but it just like, I don't know, I didn't love it. And like I said, I felt like the guy in this book I feel like was barely even in the book, and I hate when that happens in romance books, and I just felt like that was the case with this one. So I gave this one 3 stars. Like I said, I don't know if it was just that it took me so long to read it. I think it took me a week to get through this book, and I don't know if that played a role in it. I may give this another shot at some other time because maybe I would love it, but on like my first impression it just like wasn't for me. After that book I kind of felt like I was in a weird reading mood for like maybe 2 weeks afterwards, where I just like wasn't vibing with anything. Things that I would normally like, I found I wasn't getting into. And the next book I read was Starry-Eyed Love by Helena Hunting, who's one of my favorite authors of all time, and a lot of her books have been 5-star books for me, and so I was excited about this one. I will say I have noticed I don't love her books that are being published traditionally as much as I love her independently published books, but maybe that's just a me thing, I don't know. But this one is the second book in, I believe it's called the Spark House series. It follows 3 sisters who are running this like inn or bed and breakfast, I guess, called Spark House. And this one is the second book, like I mentioned, and this one was okay. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars, and my main reasoning for not really loving this one was I found that this book made the main character from the first book just seem like a really awful human being, and I hate when that happens. Like when you read a companion series and you like fall in love with the first character in the first book and then they're just like a total ass in the second book, and I felt like that's what this book did. Like I hated the girl from the first book in this book, and I loved her in her own book. Like I thought she was great in the first book, but in this one it just made me not like her, and it sort of tainted that book for me. And so I didn't love this one as much. I should have, probably, because it follows like an Etsy seller, which is definitely something that you don't really see all that often in romance books. I thought that was super cool and unique and interesting, but it just like didn't really do it for me. And like I said, I hated that the sister turned out to be like such a jerk in this one when she, you know, was great in the first book, but maybe that was just me in my reading mood, I don't know. Next I read Bound by Vengeance by Cora Riley. This is, I think, book 5 or 6 in the Born in Blood Mafia series, is that what it's called? Something like that. And I mentioned this one in my previous wrap-up, saying that this was the last one that I had read, and I decided after this one I was not going to continue with the series. I think I gave this one 3 stars. It was okay. This one follows a girl whose dad is, I believe, like in debt to the mafia, and they end up killing him, and one of the guy's like men gets given this girl as like a reward for like a job well done kind of thing. but like everyone's scared of this guy, and he's like the big scary dude, and everyone just calls him Growl because he doesn't talk and like whatever, and like there's like this whole like crazy backstory with him and whatever. But I just like, I don't know, I feel like I'm over the whole like, oh, he's so scary, and then 5 seconds later they're like chilling on the couch like not caring. And I just like, I feel like if you're gonna have like the element of like, oh, this guy is so terrifying, you need to at least like hold on to that for a little bit in the story. And I find a lot of books I'm reading lately don't. They're just like, the first 20 pages is like, oh, he's the most terrifying dude on the planet, and then you turn the next page and he's just like buying her flowers, and you're like, what the heck. I wish they would like hold out a little bit longer on that, and this one didn't. And I felt like these books started going downhill after, I think it was the third one, where I kind of was like, okay, these aren't as great as the first couple were. And so I decided this was where I was going to end the series and not going to continue on. I think there's 2 more books after this one. I don't know if they're still writing more or if that's like the actual end, but I don't think I'll be picking those ones up. Next was The Birthday List by Devney Perry. I have been on like a never-ending quest to find a Devney Perry book that I like as much as I like the Eden series, and this was another one that did not meet those expectations. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars, maybe. This one was okay. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people have raved about this one too, and I just like wasn't vibing with it, but it could have been, like I said, my mood was like way off when it came to books this month, so like take all these reviews with a grain of salt. But this one I just felt like it was okay, but it wasn't anything like super memorable. Like even now it's been less than a month since I read this, and all I can tell you about it is that it's about a girl who, I believe it's her husband, has like this birthday list, and it's sort of the equivalent of a bucket list, but it's like written out for each year of his life. So like when he turns 45 he wants to do this, or when he turns 46 he wants to do this, and he ends up getting killed. So her husband's dead and she's sort of just like grieving him, and she decides for like her final act of closure she's going to complete this list for him because he's not around to complete it, obviously. So she starts doing all these things on the list, and she ends up meeting another guy in the process, and he is helping her cross things off the list, and obviously they're getting closer and things are happening. And like I said, it was good, but it wasn't anything like super memorable or super impressive. Still not like, I don't think on the Eden's level. I don't know what it is with the Eden series, but like I love that series with every fiber of my being, and I just find like all the other Devney Perry books I've read have not had the same vibe that that series has. I don't know, maybe it's just me, like I don't know at this point. Next I read From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. I gave this one 4.5 stars, or maybe 4 stars, I honestly can't remember. And I thought maybe that I didn't vibe with this one as much because it was an audiobook, but then I realized that all of the Mariana Zapata books I've read so far have been audiobooks, so I don't think that's the case. But I liked this one. It was good. I feel like everyone knows about this one. It is an enemies to lovers, like figure skating romance where they're like figure skating partners, and it was cute. I feel like it wasn't as memorable to me as The Wall of Winnipeg was, because I feel like The Wall of Winnipeg I read like a year or 2 ago at this point, and I can still like see very detailed scenes from that book in my head, whereas like From Lukov with Love I literally read this month, and I can only really pinpoint like a plot point or 2 at this point, and so I feel like it didn't stick with me as much as The Wall of Winnipeg and Culty did. But for me it was more on the level of Under Lock, which is also another one that I read that I didn't love, but like was good. And this one was sort of the same way. Like it wasn't like a top tier book for me, but it was a good book, and I would definitely like recommend it if you like enemies to lovers, especially if you like sort of like sports romances, I guess. Next I read Wicked Beauty by Katie Robert. This is the 3rd book in the Neon Gods series. I've been like reading a lot of books from series that I've started like a million years ago, and I'm finally starting to like wrap them up, I guess. And this one follows Helen, who basically finds out that her brother has promised her as a prize to whoever wins this like big tournament to be the next Aries. And she is like super mad about it, so she decides she is going to enter the tournament herself and basically like fight for her own like hand in marriage. It reminded me a lot of like Merida from Brave, if you've ever watched that like Disney movie. It was like definitely those vibes of like, I'm gonna do this myself kind of thing. And Achilles and Patroclus have also entered this tournament, and Patroclus is mostly just there as like a sort of like wingman for Achilles, I guess, while he competes. Patroclus is there to like look out for him, and they both know that Patroclus isn't gonna win, but he's just there to help Achilles like get through to the end, hoping that he wins. And the three of them kind of spend a lot of time together while they are in this tournament. It was very like, it reminded me a lot of a combination of Brave and like Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire with like the Triwizard Tournament. Like it was very reminiscent of that to me, except obviously with like Greek gods and like a lot more modern, less magical type thing, I guess. I personally really liked this one. I know a lot of people complain about this series. I personally think each book is getting better. Like I liked each book more than the last. Gave this one 4 stars. Did really like it. Next, I read Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This was another one that I think was just a product of my mood. I didn't like this one as much as the first one. I found I got very confused in this one very quickly, and I don't know if it's because I listened to the audiobook of this one, because I started realizing recently that I find whenever I listen to like a mystery as audiobooks, I tend not to like them. But if I read them, I do like them, so I'm wondering if that's not just like a me problem and it's because I listened to it as an audiobook that I was getting confused, because I found that I couldn't keep track of like who was who in this book and what was going on. This is very different than the first book, I think, to me personally. This one follows the same girl from the first book who is now running a like murder mystery like podcast talking about how she solved this crime from the last book. And this guy comes to her being like, hey, we need your help because my brother is missing, and like he's been missing since this event that you were at, and she saw him there, and there's like this whole thing. But I just found like the plot in this one was so like wild, and like maybe it was wild in the first one and I liked that, but I just like couldn't keep up with it in this one. I think if I read the actual book I might have enjoyed it better, and I may try that at some point in the future, because I don't think the audiobooks are for me in this case. I had seen a couple people say that they really loved the audiobooks for these, so I was thinking like, okay, maybe I'll try that. But I think for like me, for mystery books, it's just not my preferred format, I guess. So maybe I'll try that again in the future, because I did really enjoy the first one, and I think this one had potential for me to enjoy it if I could have kept up with the storyline, but I just got lost somewhere and then couldn't get back on track to figure out what was going on. I think I gave this one either 3.5. I may have given it 4 stars just because I know it's like me that's the problem and not the book. But like I said, didn't love this one as much as the first one, but it's probably my fault. Next was Love Next Door by Helena Hunting. This is like a cottage romance, which I thought was really cute because I started this while I was actually at the cottage. But it took me forever to get through this one for whatever reason. And this was another one that I felt like is a little more traditionally published. I don't know if Montlake is actually like traditionally published or if that's just an indie publishing platform, but didn't love this as much as some of her other books, but it was still a good book. This is like an enemies to lovers, small town, like cottage vacation vibes book. It follows a girl who comes back home because her brother has like broken his foot or his leg or something and can't help with the dad's construction business anymore, so she comes home and she has like moved off to like the big city in Chicago or whatever, and she's moving back to temporarily help them like get back on track. And while she's there, she's staying in this trailer kind of outside of their house so that she doesn't have to feel like she's really like living with the family again. And the neighboring house to hers is this older woman's house who has passed away, who this girl used to go and sort of hang out with all the time when she was a kid. And she notices that there is a guy there all of a sudden, and she's like, what's up with this? And it ends up it's this woman's grandson who has inherited the house, and she is like immediately a jerk to him because she thinks he's gonna sell the land and like, you know, they're gonna build like condos or whatever, and she just like instantly hates this guy as soon as she meets him. And he's kind of defensive because she's like going at him, and obviously they like grow closer over the course of the book. But I thought this one was really cute. I did think it was a little odd in this one that they make reference to both of them being there as kids, but like also like they never really hung out, and I just thought that was kind of odd because they were like literally neighbors in this tiny town. Like, why were they not hanging out with each other? But I don't know. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was cute. I do want to read, there's a second book to this series as well, and I think that one will be good as well. So did enjoy this one. Not my favorite Helena Hunting, but like not terrible either. Next was Mr. Masters by T.L. Swan, and I did not love this book. I think I gave this one 3 stars maybe. I don't know. I'd heard a lot about this book. It follows a girl who is from Australia, and she decides she's going to go to, I think it's England, somewhere in the UK, and she decides she's going to go there to be a nanny for what she believes is a woman who has been widowed with 2 kids, and she shows up and it ends up being like this really attractive guy instead of a woman, and she's kind of shocked at first, but she's like, well, I've already flown all the way here, like, might as well just, like, keep the job I said I was going to take. So she ends up, like, living with this guy and his 2 kids, and obviously things go from there. But for me, like, my big issue with this one was I just really hated the guy in this book. Like, every single decision he made I disagree with, as far as, like, parenting wise, even like things he would say to his kids. I was like, dude, like, why are you saying that? Or like how he like treated his kids, or how he treated her, or like just things, everything he did I thought was stupid and like he shouldn't have been doing. And I think that sort of ruined the book for me, obviously, because I was just like getting annoyed at this guy the whole time. But I feel like I've seen a lot of reviews lately of people complaining about the men in T.L. Swan's books, so maybe they're all kind of like that, and so I'm not sure I'm gonna read another one. I may attempt, there's one that I may attempt, but like, other than that, I don't know. I don't think that their books are gonna be for me, because I just like really could not stand the guy in this book. Like, every decision was a stupid one, and I just like was not a fan. The next 3 books I'm going to talk about together because they're all part of a series, they all go together. First one is Tempt Me, then Break Me, and then Teach Me. These are all written by Kay Tucker under the name Nina West, and I think her like Nina West books are like the more like steamy books, I guess, and then the Kay Tucker books are just like the regular sort of romance books. These are the first 3 books in her Wolf Hotel series, which follows a guy that owns a hotel, basically, or like a chain of hotels, but he's got this one specific one in Alaska. And the girl, it starts out in the first book, the girl is like from this super small town, and she's like engaged to the preacher's son, sort of thing. And this preacher's son decides that he's gonna sleep around before they get married, and he's like, I need to sow my wild oats, but like, you shouldn't be sleeping with anyone because like I wouldn't want your wedding night to be ruined. And he's just like really stupid, and she kind of decides like, screw you, like I'm not gonna marry you, like you literally are like cheating on me and you're like openly doing this, like whatever. And so she fills out this job application for this hotel in Alaska thinking like, I'm gonna get away and just go and do this and like leave this all behind me. And she goes to Alaska and ends up meeting the owner of this hotel, and things obviously go from there. This is one of those like series, I put this in my Goodreads review, it's very reminiscent of like the chaos of After by Anna Todd. It's just like pure chaos, like the most ridiculous things you can imagine, but like you can't stop reading it because it's like the best kind of trashy. And I've just been really loving those kinds of books lately. I think that's what's been helping me get out of like that weird mood that I was in, which is like these really trashy but like really entertaining books. And that's what this series is. I haven't finished it yet. I think there's 2 more books, maybe only 1 more. There's at least 1 more that I haven't read yet. But I did really like these ones. I gave them all 4 stars because they're like exactly what I was looking for. I will say they're not like the most like well written. I mean, they're well written, but they're not like the most like deep books, I guess you could say. Like, they're very like surface level, fluffy, kind of like just entertaining kind of books, which is what I've been looking for. So that's why they're 4 stars, is because they were what I wanted, not because they're like, you know, super moving or anything like that. Like, I don't want people to go into these thinking that like, oh, they're so deep and like I'm gonna be emotional reading this, because it's just not like that. Like, they're fun books is what they are, and that's what I like about them. Next was Ever After Always by Chloe Lees. I always feel like I'm saying that name wrong, I probably am, and it's like super short too. But this is the 3rd book in the Bergman Brothers series, and this one was okay. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars. This one just felt like too long for me. I might have given this one 4 stars. It is a marriage in trouble book between Freya and Aiden, and you kind of see them having issues in the 2nd book towards the end, and in this book they are obviously like full-fledged having issues, but I found that there was something towards the end of this book that happened that I thought was stupid and like didn't need to be in there, and I just found that it was so long. Like, it really seemed to drag out for me, and I'm one of those people, like, I like my books like 300 pages or less. Like 367, which I think is how many pages this book was, is just too much for me in a romance book, and it just seemed really, really long for what it was. They end up kind of trapped on their parents' like anniversary trip with all of her siblings, and because of that they kind of have to act like nothing's wrong, but like everyone secretly knows that there's something wrong anyway, and they're kind of trying to fix it. But I don't know, it was okay. I found this book had like little hints of the Bromance Book Club by Lyssa Kay Adams in it, and I don't know which book came first, but I have not read a lot of Marriage in Trouble books, so I kind of didn't like that out of the like maybe 4 that I have read, 2 were very similar. Like this had very similar, like literal, like where the guy was like, oh, you should read a romance book, like it'll help you get your marriage back kind of thing. And I was like, why are we like literally copying that book? Like I didn't know why that was in there, and I didn't really like it. Like I said, I don't know which book came first, so I can't really be like, oh, this person took it from this book or whatever, but like I didn't like that that was in there. I think it didn't add anything to the plot, it was unnecessary, and it just made me think of that other book, and I wasn't a fan of that. Next, I have very, very slowly been making my way through the Addicted series still, and this month the only one I got read was Thrive by Krista and Becca Ritchie, obviously. This one I did not like. This is the first book in the series I can actually say that about. This one I gave 3.5 stars to, I think. I think this book could easily be a 4 or 5 star read if you are only reading the Addicted books, but I think if you're reading the series in the recommended reading order of like intermixing the Addicted and Calloway Sisters books, this book is like totally unnecessary. It is literally just the first 2 Calloway Sisters books from Lily and Lo's perspective. So you're getting no new actual like plot content. You're literally reliving the same 2 books over again, just from a different point of view. And I really didn't care about that. There was not much new or that I couldn't have like inferred from the previous books about Lily and Lo's like reactions to things. And I just felt like it was really unnecessary for what it was. It was kind of long, and I didn't get any new like plot content out of it, so I was not really sure. Like I said, I can see why that you would need this book if you were only reading the Addicted series, but I don't really know why they wrote it in the context of like, I don't even know why they wrote the 2 series separate to begin with, but like I don't get why this book really exists, I guess. And so like those are my thoughts on that one. I am like still filming a reading vlog for that, but it is like taking me 700 years to get these books from the library, so it is probably gonna span a lot of months, that reading vlog. Next, I read Lessons in Sin by Pam Godwin. I was not expecting to like this one as much as I did. I gave this one 4 stars, but I would honestly probably bump it up to 4.5 stars because I still haven't stopped thinking about this book, and it was like a week ago that I read this. And this one follows a girl who gets in trouble with her mom at home and ends up getting sent to this like all girls Catholic boarding school like up in the mountain somewhere or whatever. And she's obviously like super mad about that and thinks it's like ridiculous. And so her immediate plan when she gets there is she is just gonna cause like as much trouble as humanly possible and get herself expelled. And as soon as she gets there, she meets this like head priest guy who like runs the school. He owns the school, I guess, actually. And she meets him and is kind of like, okay, he's kind of attractive, but like I need to get out of here kind of thing. And so she starts doing all these things to like make him mad and hopefully expel her, but he catches on to what she's doing, so he's not obviously gonna expel her. And they start spending a lot of time together because she's getting in trouble all the time. So things go from there. Like I said, this was better than I thought it was going to be. Next is Waking Olivia by Elizabeth O'Rourke. This one was good. I don't think I loved it as much as everybody else loved it. Like, everyone's been raving about this book and giving it 5 stars and whatever. I gave this one 4 stars. It was good. It wasn't something that I think was like super memorable for me. This one follows a girl who is a track runner, and she gets kicked out of her old Division 1 school after I think she goes after like someone with a bat or something. Like she like literally attacks someone, and she ends up at this Division 3 school, and she's kind of like basically like she needs to keep her scholarship to stay in school kind of thing, and so she's like, I'm just gonna, you know, run and whatever. And her whole team kind of starts getting weird about her because some of them are like jealous because she's obviously like faster than them because she's from like a Division 1 school. And there's like a whole sort of rift, but her new coach is kind of like, at first he can't stand her. He's just like, she's the most annoying person to ever grace the planet kind of thing. And he just like really is annoyed by her, and she keeps doing things and he thinks she's doing them basically just to make him mad. And then he starts realizing that maybe that's not the case, and they start to get a little bit closer. And he has a girlfriend, so things obviously don't get too close, but it sort of goes from there. And like I said, I like this one. It was good. There was nothing like wrong with it or anything. I just don't think I loved it as much as most people did, but it was a good book. Next, I read Praise by Sarah Kate, and I have seen this book like everywhere, and even since I read it, I still keep seeing it everywhere, and I just like did not like this book. I gave this 3 stars, and I think even that was generous, to be honest. This was so boring. Like, so boring. It was 360 pages, I'm pretty sure. And the first 90, I remember I like flew through them. I was like so into the book. I was like, this is gonna be great. It's ex-boyfriend's dad. And so, you know, the setup was like really good. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be like a really, really good book. And then after like maybe like page 100, I feel like my interest just like dropped off the map. Like, I was like, I don't care anymore. Like, this is stupid. Like, I don't know. It just, I felt like nothing happened for the whole 250 pages in the middle of this book. And then in like the last 60, it was like they put everything in those last 60 pages. And there was like this random like thing that I didn't even realize this until after I'd written my Goodreads review. There's like this thing that happens at the end that's totally unnecessary and wasn't even resolved. And it just seemed like the author threw it in there just to sort of have something interesting happen in the book. But like, it was never resolved, so I was like, what was the point of that at all? And I don't know. Like I said, I found this so boring. This follows a girl who breaks up with her boyfriend, and they both miss this meeting to get like the security deposit back from their apartment. So it gets sent to his dad because he co-signed the lease with them or whatever. And so the boyfriend tells her like, oh, like if you want it, you can go get it from him. Like, I'm not talking to him. And so she's like, fine, I'll go to his house and I'll pick it up and whatever. And his dad owns like basically like a sex club kind of thing. And when she shows up to pick up the check, this like woman like brings her into the house. It's like, oh, like you can wait in his office, like he'll be there. And when he walks in the office, he just like assumes that she's a girl from his club that his friend has sent him. And obviously he goes one direction and she's kind of like, what the heck is going on? And then he realizes who she is and whatever, but like, I don't know. I just, like I said, it was so boring in the middle. I've never read a book that sort of fell into the realm of maybe like darker topics or like edgier things, I guess. It was still this boring. Like, I just did not like this book at all. And the last 2 books I read this month were Sweet Mercy and Gabriel Fallen. These are the first 2 books in Kay Tucker or Nina West's Empire, I think it's called the Empire series or the Empire Nightclub series, something like that. And I loved these 2 books. I actually just finished the 3rd one today, but it's August now, so that'll be my August wrap up. But I literally love this series so much. It is like how I mentioned the Wolf Hotel being like that sort of after like chaotic vibes of just like craziness. This one is like that, but like with the mafia. Like, it's like a whole other thing. This one starts when this girl's dad he ends up in prison for accidentally killing a guy who was trying to rape his daughter. So she is like visiting him all the time, and she like sort of feels like it's almost like her fault because he was defending her, and that's how he ended up in prison. And he didn't mean to kill this guy, but they couldn't afford a good lawyer, so he ends up in prison, and she's visiting him. And one of the days when she's visiting him, she notices this like young guy that's around her age sitting at a couple tables over talking to another guy in prison, and she realizes the guy he's talking to is like a mob boss. And she's like, oh my god, like I can't believe I'm sitting in the room with these people and whatever. And she ends up leaving, and she is in the parking lot, and her dad has kind of had some issues with people beating him up in prison because the guy he killed actually has like a cousin or something in the prison with him that is going after him. And so this like guy that she was kind of checking out in the like visitor area, his name's Gabriel, she sees him in the parking lot, and he approaches her and he says, hey, like I'll make you a deal, basically, like if you sleep with me, I'll, you know, get your dad protection in there. And she literally like slaps him in the face. She's like, that's not gonna happen. And time sort of goes on, her dad gets beat up again, a little bit worse this time, and she's starting to get worried. And he sort of like propositions her again. He's like, okay, like just come live with me for a week. and I'll get your dad protection. And she's like, fine. So she agrees to that and like moves in with him for the week. And that's the first book. All of these books end on cliffhangers. They are like super like fast paced, like really just fun, easy reads. And like I said, that's like exactly what I've been looking for right now, is like something that doesn't require me to get like emotionally invested really. Like I just want like pure chaos in my books right now. And these books have just been like really delivering that for me. And so I really like these ones. I gave them both 4 stars. And I actually think I will finish this series. I didn't finish The Wolf Hotel yet, but I probably will do that one too. They're just like really good, like I said, light, chaotic books, like if you're looking for that. And so I really have been liking these. That is everything I read in July. Like I said, I'll definitely have a mid-month wrap-up next month so that it doesn't end up being this long. If you did stick around this long, thank you. And so that's everything for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I try to do new book videos every single week, and I'll see you next time.